Alright, so we're doing an ACC preview today. That's our second conference. Getting this out of the way. This light is very bright. Okay. So ACC, obviously, as some of you guys know, I am a Miami fan, so I'm going to try to be as unbiased as I can, but we'll see how that goes. So, in my last Big Ten video, I just did the 4 top teams, but instead, well, I will do that, but I'll also give you guys 2 teams who I think probably are, I guess maybe dark horses, I would say, in the conference, in the ACC, and then I'll give you guys my top 3 picks. I would say most everybody's top 3 picks, and then at the end, I will do the top 2 teams from the conference, and if I can decide who will win the ACC in the end. So, my first part of the video is going to be deciding the top 2 dark horses. So, in the ACC, my 2 dark horses, for a number of reasons, are Virginia Tech and SMU. So first off, Virginia Tech, I think last year made a lot of progress. We haven't seen, Lane Stadium with Enter Sandman in like a big game that we used to have, at least when I was kind of first watching college football in like 2017 and 18. Those were the big days when Virginia Tech was really a solid football team. But for a number of reasons, I think they're going to be an outside contender in the ACC this year. First off, their returning experience is something that not a lot of teams anywhere have. They're going to be easily one of the most experienced teams in the conference in the country this year. 11 returning starters offensively, 10 on defense, and those are numbers that you do not see in a lot of places anymore these days. One player to watch, obviously I don't just want to shout out the QB, but I feel like I will here. Kyron Drones, he had a solid year last year. Honestly, probably one of the best QBs in the ACC last year. I mean, obviously you had like Jordan Travis and those guys, but he was probably second, well, no, Drake May. Okay, maybe third best QB in the ACC last year, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do this year. Another reason is the schedule. First off, out of conference, you got Vanderbilt, Marshall, Old Dominion, Rutgers. If you don't go 4-0 there, then I feel like you probably don't deserve to do well in the ACC. Their first conference game is against the Canes on the road. Well, I mean, if we can fill our stadium, then that would be nice, but it's a Friday night game, Virginia Tech, Miami. Hopefully by then both teams will be undefeated. We'll get to that in a little bit, but it'll be interesting for sure. They've got let's see, after Miami, Stanford, a bye, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Syracuse. I think that's 3 wins right there. Georgia Tech could be a decent team, but their schedule is brutal. It's one of the worst in the country, worst in the conference for sure. Clemson, a bye, Duke, and Virginia. The schedule's really not that bad, is what I'm saying. You got Miami on the road, Clemson at home, and other than that, I feel like they could win most of their games. They should win most of their games. So that's a number of reasons why Virginia Tech is my first dark horse in the conference. Second is going to be SMU. SMU, according to this handy-dandy Phil Steele magazine that I have here, is the easiest schedule in the ACC, has the easiest schedule in the ACC this year. They also have a decent amount of returning players on both sides of the ball this year. Former Miami OC Rhett Lashley is back for his third year at SMU this year, and you know, a lot of people, and for good reason, think they might struggle in a new conference, but we've seen teams like Jacksonville State and James Madison. I think James Madison is probably the best example. They have excelled in 2 years in the Sun Belt, winning. Did they win any? I don't know if they won anything, but they would have been in the conference championship had they been allowed to be in it. I think both years, and they were in the FCS like 2 years ago. So I think there's a number of reasons as to why this team can succeed this year. And as I was saying, the schedule is not very difficult. It's the easiest in the conference. You have Florida State and Louisville out of the gate. First two games in ACC play. I don't know how good Louisville's going to be. I feel like I don't see them making the ACC championship. I know we said that last year, but I don't see them making the ACC championship. It would be hard to see that, especially with a rather mediocre QB. Although, again, Jack Plummer last year for Louisville wasn't great at all either. So, we'll see. But SMU, second dark horse team. Dark horse, if you know what I mean. It's a mascot joke. But anyways, moving on, top three teams in the ACC. First off, I'm starting with Florida State, the returning ACC champions from last year. 13-1 last year, or 13-0 as Florida State fans like to say. A great year last year, all jokes aside. They really, I think they were the most dominant, well, obviously the most dominant team in the ACC day in and day out. Every Saturday, it seemed they pretty much dominated ACC competition except for a few squeaks here and there. I mean, the Boston College game last year was close for no particular reason. The game against Miami was really close. Obviously, I mean, we were down a QB, so we had to, wait, no. I'm forgetting. Did we bench Tyler Van Dyke? I don't know. I think that was after Tyler Van Dyke got benched, and we started Emory Williams, which, got us pretty close. I mean, he definitely showed some bright spots, but we'll get to that in a bit. So, Florida State this year is going to be DJU at the QB, DJ Uyagalele. He is a two-time transfer now from Clemson and Oregon State. So, I personally, a game to circle on the schedule is going to be October 5th against Clemson. It's a home game, but it'll be a revenge game nonetheless for DJU, who's looking to prove to his former coach, Dabo Swinney, that he has what it takes to take his former team down. They obviously haven't played DJU and Clemson. He was at Oregon State last year, so they wouldn't have played anywhere, but it'll be interesting to see. They've got some returning production in the running back room. Well, Roydell Williams is an Alabama transfer, and then Lawrence Toafili is also returning, so that's a nice running back duo up the middle. Williams is a Alabama transfer, I believe. And then some returning names defensively as well. Defensive end Patrick Payton and cornerback Fentrell Cypress are certainly two names that helped them a lot last year. You lost guys like Jared Verse, but you lose guys like that every year that are important to your program, and that's what the great programs do, is just restock for the next years and so on and so forth. But I think Florida State easily has a chance to be competitive for a shot at the ACC title. Says that they have the 12th most difficult schedule in America, which certainly doesn't help. SMU on the road, that's their, well, actually, that's their 4th conference game this year. Florida State's schedule is a little weird this year in that their last conference game is November 2nd. Their final 3 games are Notre Dame, Charleston Southern, and Florida, all out of conference. So they have a lot of conference games early, which means we'll know by, I think, early November whether they even have a shot to be in the ACC championship game. But I think the talent is certainly there. Mike Norvell has done an incredible job there, and the talent, as I said, is certainly there to make the championship. But we'll see if the QB play is there from DJU. That's going to be one of the big questions for the Noles this year. Team number 2 that I have competing for an ACC championship realistically is going to be the Clemson Tigers. So last year, obviously, I think the whole discussion was Florida State and Clemson for the ACC championship, and there weren't too many names being thrown out there that could compete realistically for the ACC championship other than those two. Well, Clemson starts their season 4-4 last year. They went out the rest of the way to finish 9-4, which I think is really a testament that 9-4 was a down year for that program. And 9-4 is a year that a lot of programs in any conference would die to have. So I think that's a testament to what Dabo Swinney has done there at Clemson. But obviously the big headline in the offseason is that Swinney is reluctant to using the transfer portal. There were 4 teams in America who did not take in a single transfer, and it were the 3 service academies, Army, Navy, Air Force. Clemson was the 4th. So, I mean, as much as he doesn't like it or whatnot, which I think I would agree with him, but he has to just be able to adapt to the new era. I mean, it's not going to go away because you don't want it to be there, but I don't know what I'm saying. But anyways, Clemson, obviously, Cade Klubnik is returning for his 3rd year, I believe. 3rd? I think he was... This is his 2nd year starting. Yeah, 2nd year starting. They brought him in off the bench with DJU. He and DJU were like 1A and 1B for Clemson in 2022. And they won an ACC championship in that year, which was quite surprising. Didn't make it to the CFP, though. And then last year, he really got to start, and the results were less than desirable for them, I guess. Obviously, the 4-4 start was something that we just haven't seen, like, in the time that I've watched college football at Clemson. So, Clemson, I think, is maybe a little, I would say, less talented than Florida State. I would say, Georgia, week 1, as we look at their schedule, Georgia, week 1 is going to be brutal. I think they do lose that. But then again, it's a non-conference game. In the 12-team playoff, you can lose all of your conference games no, you cannot lose all your conference games. If you're a Power 4 team, you can lose all of your non-conference games, win out in conference, win the conference championship, and you're in at 9-4 or 10-3 or whatever. So it's interesting to see how that works, but Georgia week 1 is going to be a pretty brutal awakening for them. I think they lose that. App State should be a win, although if you want a rude awakening as a Power 4, Power 5 team, look no further than App State. They beat Michigan as an FCS team however many years ago. They beat Texas A&M in 2022, so I mean, don't overlook them, I guess is what I'm saying. NC State is how they open up their conference schedule. Stanford at home. Florida State on the road. Absolutely massive game. I don't know. Cade Klubnik versus DJU. It's going to be interesting. Especially since it's in Tallahassee, I see Florida State winning that. I do. Cade Klubnik is going to have to perform better this year for them. Wake Forest on the road, Virginia, Louisville at home, Virginia Tech on the road. They cannot overlook that game. That's a big game. That's a big game for sure. Pitt on the road, and then that's it for conference matchups. They have the Citadel and South Carolina both at home to finish the season. So overall, there are some tricky matchups on this schedule for Clemson, and also, I mean, given the fact, Georgia week 1, and then, last year the season started with a loss on the road against Duke, and it didn't continue very well after that, so I think they lose to Georgia week 1, but we'll see how they respond after that in the coming weeks. And then finally, got the Miami Hurricanes, final team in the ACC. Listen, I think we have the most talented offense in the ACC. One of the more talented offenses in the country. Not the most, but one of the more talented offenses in the country. Defensively, I mean, we got some returning starters. The secondary will be maybe one of the question marks of the team, if you will. But I think this team has the talent to go very far. I don't want to say CFP, because I feel like if I say CFP, then I don't know. Miami, if you know a lick about them, they will always find ways to lose games that they're not supposed to. And it starts with Florida week 1 as we look at the schedule. Florida, I think it's going to be hard to judge Florida this year because their schedule is just absurd. I mean, I have never seen anything like it. Florida's schedule is one of the most brutal things we have seen in probably a few years. It's one of the worst schedules I've ever seen. So it's going to be hard to judge them. I think if they go like 6-6, that'll be pretty impressive. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked here. I think we have the talent to beat Florida. I think a lot of things. Florida has obviously been talking a lot of trash. I mean, we have too, but we're in a lot of recruiting battles together, so it'll be interesting. Week 1 is always a beast of a week. I mean, you don't know what your team's looking like truly until you get out on the football field, and we've got a massive matchup week 1 with Florida at the Swamp too, which will be a tough place to play in, but I do think we can win that. I think we can. Florida A&M, Ball State, USF on the road, which I feel like, I mean, we definitely shouldn't overlook them. I'm not saying we will, but we lost to Middle Tennessee State 2 years ago, so I really don't know what I should think with this team. Virginia Tech to open up ACC play is an absolutely huge game. I hope people pack out Hard Rock for that, just like Lane Stadium would be packed. I hope there's a lot of green and orange in that crowd. Cal, the next week on the road, it's just, I don't know why Cal and Stanford joined the conference, and SMU too. It's a scheduling disaster, but I can rant about that for days. We got a bye, and then we really hit a kind of tough part of the schedule. Louisville on the road and Florida State at home. I might try to go to the Louisville game. It's going to be a big game for sure. Louisville on the road, Florida State at home. Two massive games there. Duke at home, Georgia Tech on the road, a bye, and then Wake Forest and Syracuse to finish out the year. So I think Miami, at the very least, I think 10-2 should be our floor. If I'm speaking realistically, I think if we don't go 10-2, that would be pretty disappointing. I think we need to win one. If we win one of Louisville and Florida State, if we go 1-1 in those 2 weeks, I think we should be happy with that. And then I'm leaving room for one other mishap. I can't tell you where that will be. If it's Florida, if it's Virginia Tech, heck, if it's Georgia Tech again from last year. It's yeah. That was I'm not going to talk about it any further, but I think 10-2 should be the floor. The absolute floor should be 9-3. We should not be below 9-3 at all this year. We're just too talented, and there's, like Cam Ward, this is his last year. Damian Martinez, pretty sure this is his last year. Xavier Restrepo. There's too much talent on this team to go anything below, really 10-2, but 9-3. I mean, yeah, we'll see. So, the ultimate question is, who do I have in the ACC Championship? Putting together schedules, team strength, coaching, everything that could possibly go into my predictions. I think my ACC championship this year is Florida State versus Miami. I think Miami, I feel stupid saying this. But I feel that Miami has the talent to make it to the ACC championship game. I don't know about win it, but I feel we have the talent to make the championship game this year. If we go 11-1 and lose in the ACC championship, I feel like we have a strong case to make the CFP. I think between all of the teams that could be competing in this conference, I think 2 teams in the CFP would be a good bet for that. I mean, there's a lot of depth, a lot of strength at the top of this conference. So there you have it. That's my ACC predictions for this year, and we'll see how I do in next offseason.